Next up, our new chair, Alison McGovern.
Good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me all right? I hate speaking at lecterns. At the back, can you hear me? Yes, excellent, lovely. Before I begin, I just want to say to you, Kez, you are the very definition of steely determination. Yeah. You have given us hope and inspiration. And we are all 100% foursquare behind you. What you just said was brilliant, and we all agree with you. Now, I'm going to say this morning something about Britain and about the elections that we've just had. But I hope that you will all permit me just for a moment to indulge in a little bit of self-reflection. This morning, when I arrived at Euston Station, did as I often do when I'm in London and gave the tube a swerve and decided to walk here to the TUC this morning. Not least because the route, as I know, but probably Zach Goldsmith doesn't, the walking route from Euston Station to the TUC takes you through the very pleasant surroundings of University College London, Birkbeck College, and a number of other institutions of higher education, two of which, UCL and Birkbeck, I had the pleasure to go to. And it made me think of my own family, because over 3 generations of McGoverns, we have taken 3 long strides. My grandfather, Peter, was born in a cellar in Regent Street in the North Liverpool docks, born the 12th child of 13, although when he was 67, he did finally get to go to Liverpool University. My dad, Michael, was a very ill child when he was born, and they lived in very bad private rented accommodation, but were rescued by a council tenancy and assisted to get it by a Labour councillor. And in my own life, I experienced in childhood the trauma of the 1980s and the depression of the early 90s, and yet I now find myself sitting on the green benches of the House of Commons. And I reflect on those 3 long strides made by 3 generations of my family, and I realise that each of those steps was only taken because of the foresight of careful, brilliant Labour governments, whether it's the NHS, public affordable housing, schools that did a great job with excellent teachers, or universities that were truly open to people in this country. My family could have had no success without Labour governments. And actually, our story is extraordinarily common. I imagine, in fact, I know for a fact, there are plenty of people sitting in this audience right now whose family story is alarmingly similar to my own. So what does that tell us, that very common British story? What does that tell us about our country? I think it tells us this. The United Kingdom may not have always been run by Labour governments, but Labour governments, when they have come, have made profound and lasting change to our country. We have become more progressive. Yet, this is ignored by the hard left and the hard right in Britain. They exist on the basis of pessimism and negativity, and they suppose that the best of British values existed in the case of the right sometime in the Victorian era, I don't know when, and in the case of the hard left on a protest march sometime in the 1960s. Well, I say that is wrong. And if you disagree with me, I offer you this simple challenge. Which of us would change places with our parents or our grandparents? None of us. Britain is not in decline. It is the best country in the world, and that's why My first lesson about what the centre-left should do now is that we should be the optimists. So to turn to the elections, especially the local elections that we've just had, I want us all to forget for a moment that somehow these elections are a test, nothing more than an indicator for our party. I think that's wrong. I think we should ask ourselves, what do the recent elections that we've just had, what do they tell us about our country? What does the result in Exeter, where people stayed with us through thick and thin, tell us? What does the result in Crawley, where people voted for a young leader who is obsessed? I've met him, I know. He's obsessed by housing. What does that result in Crawley tell us? And what does it tell us about Cheshire, that even in George Osborne's backyard, those Tories could not beat us in the Police and Crime Commissioner elections? Well, I think it tells us this. Friends, there are Labour voters everywhere. And you know what? If you show the kind of leadership that Kes does all the time, if you show the kind of leadership that Ben Bradshaw does in Exeter, that Pete Lamb does in Crawley, and that Sam Dixon does in Cheshire West and Chester, you can win. Even despite Ken Livingstone's best efforts, you can win. So, where next for the left? Now, there's always a tendency for us to overthink. There's always a tendency for us to slightly intellectualize, but actually, it's simple. We know what people want. The much harder question is how to get it. Whether it's a decent place to live, a park to play in, a library to learn to read in, or a career that will bring you fulfillment, this is what Labour is for, getting our people the things that they need. And actually, what I've learned from politics is the thing that I didn't learn in university, that actually true political insight doesn't come from books. It comes from understanding people's real lives and their genuine aspirations. So, friends, I leave you with this challenge. Let's never retreat into academic discussions, but rather have the courage to listen to the voters, learn from them, and the ambition to win.